Madam Mayor, streaming has begun.
Okay,
thank you. This is a public meeting as required by subsection 3412 of the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment respecting 220 Prospect Street. The applicant is proposing to rezone the subject lands to allow for the construction of a new single detached residential dwelling with a reduction to several provisions of the general residential zone 1, R1, regulations on this property. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Seeing none, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Madam Mayor, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 120 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on Friday, September the 18th, 2020. Notice was physically posted to the property by municipal staff and placed residential zone site. Notice was also displayed in the weekly CE Buzz advertisements. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, would you like to lead us through this zoning bylaw amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just share my screen. Presentation. As has been indicated, this is a draft zoning bylaw amendment for 220 Prospect Street. As can be seen on the screen, the property is on the west side of Prospect Street at the intersection of Prospect, Franklin Drive, and Maple Street. As per the staff report that was originally prepared, right now, the property, as can be seen on the screen, is 218 Prospect. We did receive a legal opinion that the property in question is actually two parcels on, I guess, a historically plan of subdivision. As such, the property that they're looking to rezone is this box on the screen right now. This would be a 220. And as you can see, part of the existing garage, a kind of detached garage on for the 218 Prospect will be demolished for the construction of the dwelling. As can be seen on the screen, this is the kind of gives you a lot plan of what's being proposed and the size of the dwelling on the parcel of land. The residential dwelling is similar in size to what is to the south and what is generally within the immediate vicinity of this parcel of land. And these are just some elevation drawings to show again what is being proposed on the parcel. This brings us to the draft amendment. Part 1 of the amendment introduces Schedule A to the bylaw, being map part 4AA. And then part 2 of the amendment designates the lands outlined in heavy solid lines on Schedule A as R1-87, as can be seen here. Part 3 of the amendment introduces a new subsection to the residential R1 special provisions, being 9.2.2.87, introduces that the defined area shown on zoning map part 4AA be R1-87. The coverage increases the maximum coverage for the dwelling being 25%, and then again, because of the way that the bylaw is structured, it's 21% maximum for accessory buildings, as the porches, deck, and everything else that's being proposed on the parcel of land would be considered as part of the accessories, buildings, and structures. The front yard setback is being reduced to 6 meters. The side yard setback, as shown in the plan that was provided with the application, is a 2.13 meter northerly side yard and a 1.53 meter southerly side yard. The rear yard minimum is 6 meters with a floor area ratio of 0.84 being the maximum. Again, recognizing just the small nature of the parcel of land and the proposed dwelling on the that small parcel. The deck minimum rear yard is 2.4 meters. This recognizes that the deck projection into the rear yard. Same thing with the balcony minimum rear yard being 4.82 meters. Again, the encroachment into the rear yard by the upper balcony. Exterior basement stairs being 4.82 meters. Again, this is encroaching into the rear yard setback. There's going to be a revision to the parking space minimum or the parking space size. The Port Stanley bylaw actually has a 3.04 meters by 6.05 meter minimum parking space size. So this is just ensuring that the parking space that are provided are accurately reflected in the bylaw. And then the exceptions, it goes through a number of sections. Again, these are all the special provisions for what's required to allow for the development on the site. And then part 4 of the amendment introduces Schedule B to the bylaw, being zoning map 4 to bylaw 1507. The changes made to zoning map 4 and by all previous amendments and by this proposed amendment. And this is the zoning map part 4. And again, with the area shown here as the special provision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McClure. Have you received any written submissions on this proposal?
Madam Chair, no correspondence has been received.
Thank you. We are now opening the meeting to questions from the public. For those attending who've not already submitted their concerns or comments to the municipality, if you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you have called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be taken in a sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record. Mr. Perrin will be letting me know who and allowing us to know in order who wishes to ask questions or speak. Mr. Perrin, is there anyone?
Madam Mayor, no one wishes to speak.
Thank you very much. Do any members of council have any questions? One question that I would ask, Mr. McClure, the building that is at 218 that is still there, that is already there, they're removing the garage or whatever the thing on the one side that protrudes into the new lot. How far will that building then be from the lot boundary? Will it be the normal distance once that is removed from the lot edge?
It will be consistent with the side yard setbacks in the area. Again, it is a lot of those lots are very, I guess, kind of constrained on the side yards. But yes, it'll be consistent with what's in the vicinity.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw on the proposed amendment should email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralalgan.org, indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on and providing their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call Diane Wilson at 519-631-4860, extension 286, and provide the same information. This public meeting is now concluded. Any amendment to the bylaw will be considered at a future meeting of council.
Muted until the next.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a public meeting as required by subsection 34:12 of the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment respecting 42025 McBain line. The purpose of the amendments is to permit the development of an approximately 13.42 meter by 10.35 meter accessory building for the storage of 2 recreational vehicles on the property. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Seeing none, what method of notice and when was notice given to the public for this meeting?
Madam Chair, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 120 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on Friday, September the 18th, 2020. Notice was physically posted to the property by municipal staff and placed on the municipal website. Notice was also displayed in the weekly C-Buzz advertisements.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, would you like to explain how this zoning bylaw amendment will work?
Just a second here. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a presentation for the draft zoning bylaw amendment for 42025 McBain line. As can be seen on the screen, the property is on the south side of McBain line, east of Wellington Road, with the initial stages of the Jacqueline Farm subdivision. As was, brought forward in the report, there is a part of this amendment, there is going to be a bit of a mapping change to the property immediately to the west of 42025 McBain line. Again, just currently there are 2 zones that kind of straddle both the properties. So this is, as part of this amendment, we're going to be looking at ensuring that the zones meet the property lines. This is just a diagram of showing what is being proposed. The new building being located on the property adjacent to the jogged out area between the 2 parcels of land. And then this is what is being proposed to store the 2 recreational vehicles. This now brings us to the amendment itself. Part 1 of the amendment introduces Schedule A to the bylaw, being map part 2AR. And Part 2 further designates the lands outlined in heavy solid lines on Schedule A hereto as R1-85, as can be seen here. And as you can see on this image here, the other parcel of land to the west and how the existing R1-66 is now reflecting what the existing parcel fabric is, whereas the R1-85 applies to the entirety of the property at 42025 McBain line. So Part 3 of the amendment introduces a new section to the Yarmouth bylaw for the R1 zone, being 9.2.2.85, introduces the defined area being R1-85 shown on zoning map part 2AR. Just before I continue on, this area was subject to a previous site-specific amendment as part of the Jacqueline Farms plan of subdivision. So the majority of this bylaw amendment is bringing forward the previous site-specific amendment. I've highlighted in here what is actually being changed to what the existing zoning is. But we needed to take this approach in order to ensure that the site-specific provisions of what the existing zone were carried on forward with this amendment. So as you'll see, the highlighted areas are what really applies to this site-specific proposal. So the proposed permitted uses being, again, single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, and accessory uses. Permitted buildings in this zone, no buildings or structures shall be erected except for the permitted uses permitted in the previous subsection, as I read off there, with single detached, semi-detached, and accessory uses. Minimum lot area for single detached dwellings is 380 square meters. Semi-detached dwellings is 300 square meters. Lot frontage for single detached is 12 meters. Lot frontage for semi-detached dwellings is 10 meters. Maximum coverage of 40%. Maximum number of dwelling units being in single detached, 1 dwelling per lot, and semi-detached, 2 per lot. Front yard depth being 6 meters, rear yard depth being 9 meters, side yard depth being interior side yard being 1 meter and exterior side yard being 4 meters. Height being 11 meters for the main building. And this is one of the changes as through this proposal. It's 6.6 meters for detached accessory buildings and structures as proposed. The original was 6 meters. So it's asking for a change of 0.6 meters in height. Area, again, being 1 story dwelling, 74 square meters, 1.5 story dwelling being 60 square meters, 2 story dwellings being 42 square meters. Off-street parking being 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. And then this is again site specific to this proposal, use of yards and residential zones, storage of 2 recreational vehicles in a detached accessory building, use of land for parking in residential zones, parking of 2 recreational vehicles that have manufacturer's combined gross vehicle weight rating of 7,300 kilograms. And then the site-specific exceptions, again, being to the height and the parking and use of the property for the storage of the recreational vehicles. Part 4 of the amendment is the recognition and the designation of the lands that were hatched on Schedule A as R1-66. So that's the previous amendment carrying over the existing uses that were provided for that previous amendment, but just recognizing that the mapping has changed. And then part 5 being that, again, introduction of Schedule B to the bylaw, introducing the zoning map 2, which has all of the changes to the zoning maps that have been made to zoning map 2 to date, and including the changes that were made through this amendment, as can be seen here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McClure. Have you received any written submissions on this proposal?
Madam Chair, correspondence has been received from Elizabeth and William Diamond, 29 James Turvey Place, stating they disapprove of the amendment as they cannot be assured that the structure would not be used for purposes other than trailer storage should the property be sold in the future.
Thank you. We'll now be opening the meeting to questions from the public. For those attending who have not already submitted their concerns or comments to the municipality, if you are listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you have called into this meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. Questions will be taken in sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record. Meeting's now open to the public. Mr. Perrin will be letting us know if there's anyone who wishes to speak.
Madam Mayor, there's only 1 person in attendance to the meeting and no questions are noted.
Okay, so that 1 person who's in attendance, if you make sure you signal with your hand, the hand icon on the screen if you wish to speak. In the meantime, do any members of council have any questions concerning this? Mr. Fair and Councillor Fair, Councillor Kravitz.
We did get this letter from Elizabeth and William Diamond. Isn't there some response that they should get? Is there any kind of reassurance that about their concern, because they're concerned that it would change? Is there some comfort that can be given as far as saying no, it won't change or anything, or do we just ignore because I don't think we do just ignore their letter.
No, and certainly because it's being zoned very specifically for 2 recreational vehicles, that's all it can be used for. But we do need to let them know that. Mr. McClure, would you like to respond to that?
Sorry, so it would be, thank you, Madam Mayor. It would be covered by the accessory uses provisions of the bylaw. The specifics for the zone are allowing that if there is going to be any sort of storage of recreational vehicles, it has to occur within that building. But should an owner a new purchaser buy the property, they would be able to use that as an accessory structure. I mean, they would be limited to accessory type uses in there. So, I mean, they could use it as a potential workshop or something like that, but I'm not too sure what the nature of the concern of the neighbor was, other than it's just as an example, it couldn't be converted into like another residence without there being another land use planning approval. It'd still be limited to an accessory use.
Councillor Kravitz?
I just got concerned with that part 3 where you put a specific kilogram weight of the vehicles that can go in the building. What is the purpose of that? If you can just comment on that, please, Kevin. Mr. McClure.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. The bylaw as it's written right now has a weight limit for storage of recreational vehicles in residential zones. The purpose of this weight, I guess, acknowledging the weight restriction in there is to acknowledge that it can hold the weight of up to 2 recreational vehicles as been, I guess, weighed or determined by the applicant, and limits it to, again, that maximum weight rating. Right now, I think that the weight rating is somewhere around 4,000 kilograms in the bylaw. So this is, again, making sure that it's within that weight restriction.
Councillor Kravitz?
So the specific number you have, I think it was 7,300 is what you recommended. Is that the combined weight of both? The wording was unclear there.
Yes, it's the combined weight of both vehicles. So it would limit the maximum weight of both vehicles combined on the property to be 7,300 kilograms.
Okay. I just think it's getting kind of a little too specific to add something like that to the bylaw. I'm just wondering the reasoning for adding that to the bylaw. I don't have any justification for that in there. If you could, thank you.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Within the Yarmouth bylaw, there's a specific provision to, I guess, restrict or have a weight rating for recreational vehicles in residential zones. So there already exists a specific limit to ensure that nobody could, I guess, store vehicles that are higher than that weight rating. This is, again, just reflecting that there is already general provisions within the residential zones of the Yarmouth bylaw that has a weight limit. This now would just put, again, a specific weight rating as requested by the applicant for the 2 vehicles that he is looking to have parked on the property.
Okay, and then just one more follow-up question. Has the applicant considered that if they ever trade their vehicles and they want to increase the weight of a vehicle, is there any buffer that's been included in this, or is that number going to be the upper limit and they'd have to come back to council to do another zoning bylaw amendment if they get a heavier trailer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the weight limit that they had requested lower, I had rounded it up in order to provide that little bit of that flexibility. I believe it was 7,324 or 7,300 and or thereabouts of kilograms. So the 7,400 or sorry, the 7,200. Anyways, it was about 50 kilograms difference, just to round it up. Just to, again, to ensure that little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fair.
Just a little follow up on Councillor Kravitz. Why do we care what weight it is as long as it fits in the building?
I think, as Mr. McClure said, it's already in the original bylaw, zoning bylaw. So it's just, unless we're going to negate the original bylaw that's on there until we come to new ones. I'm assuming that's, Mr. McClure, is that correct?
And that's my understanding too. And I think it's also just so that you're limiting the amount of weight in vehicles potentially on like residential driveways and those sorts of things. Cause I'm assuming that the driveway and that may have to be, improved to a certain standard if you're having higher weight on the driveway. But again, I'm not too sure the historical nature of putting it in there, other than to limit the storage of those types of vehicles. Again, it's the specific weight rating that was put in was to address that general provision.
So I think the other thing I wonder is who is going to monitor whether it's that weight or not.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm sure our bylaw officer will be just thrilled to know he has to check the weights of recreational vehicles. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question. The height limit is extended in this amendment by 0.6 meters. Is that with or without the crow's nest or the vent that's on the top of the building?
Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that's without that crow's nest, as you put it. That does not factor into height in the Yarmouth bylaw. So it's from the midpoint from the ridge to the eaves, which is what the 6.6 meters would be. So the actual height to the peak would be taller than that, but that's consistent with all of kind of the peaked roofs, how they're measured in Yarmouth. It's always from the midpoint from the midpoint to the ridge and the eaves. But yeah, that decorative element at the top would not factor into the overall height, and would not get measured. And the height restriction and height requirement would not impact the ability to put that element on there.
Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, so thank you. I don't know if there's any history about this particular parcel or not, but given that it's a relatively new subdivision, it's just very odd, I find, that there's that size of a parcel of land that's left without a house on it. So I didn't know if there was any history as to why. And then if I look at the diagram, it's not clear to me where the driveway is for this, because is there a house to the east of this, and that's the property owner that has the same piece of property, so that they'll be going out directly on that road, or are they going out actually onto McBain line? Where's my picture here?
My understanding is it's the house to the west.
But there's three houses that
to the east
are on the east side. Sorry, did I say that wrong? Maybe. Yes, there's three houses to the east, and they all enter onto the other road. Now I don't know what it's called, but and then there's the parcel on the west side, and I'm not sure where that driveway is either.
It's the original farmhouse for the farm. Mr. McClure?
If I may, I'll just share my screen again and maybe just bring up the diagram. All right. So as you can see, so the parcel right here, this is an older aerial photo, but the new house for this parcel is kind of around where my cursor is, if you can see that on the screen. And the old farmhouse is here. There is an existing driveway that kind of comes out in this direction. So by looking at here, this is where McBain line is at the north. This is where that new dwelling is at 42025 McBain line, and this is the old farmhouse. So this is where the jogged property line is. My understanding is that I guess there was a proposal several years ago to do some sort of infilling development or some long range kind of plan to do something in there that never went forward, and then now this has come the residence was built. But this is where, so there's this existing driveway here, and then there would be a driveway going to the shop out front. And they would both be going on to McBain.
Mr. Leach.
Clears things up.
Thank you, Kevin.
Madam Mayor, as well, this particular property was outside of the original plan of subdivision, so that the plan of subdivision developed around this parcel, but it wasn't part of the original plan of subdivision.
It was land kept with the old farmhouse, is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Perrin, I assume no one is wanting to ask a question?
Madam Mayor, there's 2 people in attendance now and no one has raised their hand.
Thank you. All questions from council? Okay. Everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw on this proposed amendment should email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralalgon.org, indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on and providing their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call Diane Wilson at 519-631-4860, extension 286, and provide the same information. This public meeting is now concluded. Any amendment to the bylaw will be considered at a future meeting of council.